Excited for 4.1 but need help in catching up with the main world quests in 4.0? If so, then this video is for you. This video will contain a summary of all the main world quests as well as the best order to play them in. Although you can encounter these quests in any way you please, there's one order in my opinion that gives the best narrative experience possible. I'm your leafy lore Minsleif and I read the Genshin Impact lore so that you don't have to. Please keep in mind this is a leak-free zone, so any and all information included in this video is either confirmed by Hoyoverse or speculative in nature. No leaks, only drip. The best order to play these quests is to start with Ancient Colors. It makes the hidden quest encounters make much more sense, trust me. There are 2 optional side quests which I think are worth doing, but after that is Aqueous Tidemarks, a secret quest, and of Narzissenkreuz, and finishing off with a final secret quest. Thank you Mod Kinney for compiling this quest route, and I can say for sure it provided the best lore-abiding experience. I'll be providing a short summary of each major world quest in version 4.0, as well as a summary of the bigger overarching story which, in true Genshin fashion, can be found in scattered interactable items and artifact lore descriptions. I'll do my best to leave theories at the end of each quest section so as to not confuse canon events with theory crafting. Ancient Colors, more popularly known as the Melusine quest, starts off in Elenas where Traveler and Paimon meet a Melusine named Mamere. Mamere is a lone artist whose abstract works go unappreciated in Melusine village. Her only source of companionship is a talking clockwork mecha dog named Seymour, and Father, an entity that only she seems to see and hear. Her art has caught the eye of an art collector named Mr. Jacob, who claims that the paint she uses for her work is incredibly valuable. As a cool Easter egg, you can actually interact with this Mr. Jacob at the very beginning of this questline by finding him on a hill. The reason Mamere's art is so valuable is because she uses toxic red ores for her paints, which unbeknownst to her are the congealed blood of a massive beast named Elenas. Jacob is after the blood of Elenas, and an altercation breaks out causing Seymour to spring into action to protect Mamere. Seymour is severely damaged in the fight, and the only way to fix him is to retrieve mechanical scrap parts from Melusine in need, since these scrap parts are the Melusine currency. The fastest way to clear this portion of the quest is to talk to Serene, Costanziana, Iara, and Veranata. If you encounter Canatilla and Ahis, both their side quests are a little longer, but the big juicy lore you get from them is totally worth it. We can circle back to these 2 in a sec. With the guidance of Father and these scrap parts, Mamere is able to restore Seymour. Seymour claims he had been functioning in hibernation mode for 1/7 times 10 to the 21st power clockwork cycles, which is around 493 years. His mission is to protect his master, someone named Mary Ann, who had something to do with the Narzissenkreuz Ordo. Jacob, revealing his true form to be an iniquitous Baptist, summons rift wolves and attempts to restart Elenas' heart, both of which could potentially destroy Melusine village. Traveler, Paimon, Seymour, and Mamere, with the help of the consciousness of Elenas, are able to stop the heart from restarting. Traveler gets a private moment with Elenas, who appears to them in the form of a Melusine. Elenas was once a form in the cosmic darkness, until he was found by Mother, who gave him many siblings, his name, and his body. When Elenas and his siblings rose to the surface of Teyvat, his existence caused the other races of Teyvat great suffering, a thought which made him incredibly sad. Elenas would later succumb to his injuries, some of which were inflicted by the Fontaine armada, but his consciousness would remain intact for all these years. A couple years after his physical death, his body would attract the interest of a man named René, and surprisingly Jacob, the latter of whom would absorb his blood to gain abyssal power. A battle inside of Elenas' body would break out involving Jacob, with a massive explosion killing many people. Eventually, from his wounds and broken flesh, the Melusine race would be born, hence why Mamere refers to him as Father. With Melusine village saved, and perhaps with more questions than answers, Seymour departs, promising to return to Mamere once he finds Marianne in the Narzissenkreuz Ordo. Fun fact, Seymour introduces himself as Prototype 4ACV07, which is a reference to the production code of a Futurama episode about a loyal dog named Seymour, who's trying to find a human important to him. Now that we have the summary, there are a couple theories that spring from this particular world quest. Is Elenas' mother Reindutier? As a quick recap, Reindutier is the infamous Conrian alchemist and member of the Hexen Circle who is credited for allegedly releasing the abyssal monsters into Teyvat during the Cataclysm. She more famously goes by the name Gold. Her known creations or children are Albedo, Primordial Albedo, Rift Wolves, the Golden Wolf Lord, Durin, and possibly Elenas. This connection to gold might also explain why Elenas' blood is toxic. If you were playing Genshin during 2.3, then you might have gotten your hands on the Cinnabar Spindle, whose refinement material is alkahest, a deadly corrosive poison that is able to sublimate matter. Sublimation is typically the conversion of a substance from a solid to a gaseous state, but what if it has the opposite effect on abyssal creatures? Alkahest might explain why gold can reform abyssal creatures to have more impressive bodies like LNS seems to suggest, and it could also explain why LNS and Durin have toxic blood. Alkahest is literally a deadly corrosive poison that is alien to this world. Another possible identity for Mother could be the primordial sea itself, as Neuvillette describes it to have been an agent for creating new life, but in its current state now seeks to destroy life. Remember the 2 Melusine I mentioned earlier? A hiss will give you a quest which explains what may have happened to Elenas in his final moments, and it's a good side quest to learn about Elenas and the Fontainian armada sent out to defeat him. But Canotilla offers one of the craziest side quests ever. Upon speaking to Canotilla, she'll hit you with one of the biggest lore bombs to ever lore bomb in a side quest.
Interesting, but to my eyes, Paimon is just like a little rainbow balloon floating in the air, and her string seems to extend upward to somewhere above the sky itself. What I see, if I really must say, then I see a monster that looks like it could swallow the whole world in a single bite.
I mean, come on, how could you not play this quest after all that? Although not necessary, I think Book of Esoteric Revelations is worth the playthrough, especially if you're looking to learn about one of Fontaine's most nefarious figures so far. Book of Esoteric Revelations will have you and Paimon investigating the secrets of a mysterious book that was left behind by the infamous René de Petrichor. Some of you might recognize the name René as he's the same author of René's investigation notes, which was introduced as early as the covering of Good and Evil World Quest in version 3.6. René was a Fontainian researcher who was best known for his research into Conrian technology and something way more evil that we'll find out in a sec. Canotilla's book is missing several pages, which obviously is your job to collect. There are 13 enigmatic pages in total, with the 10th not available in this patch. By inserting these pages into the Book of Revelation, Traveler and Paimon will be transported into a realm which looks eerily similar to Enkanomiya. This scene reminded me of Fischl's domain and the Golden Apple Archipelago. Fake sky theory, anyone? Directly behind you, you'll see a glimpse of the upside-down water structure from the Chasm Archon quest. This sentence is a theory, but I wonder if that water that soothes the Conrian curse is primordial water. Traveler and Paimon eventually wake up from their hallucination only to find out Canotilla had a vision of something entirely different, a garden and a sweet dog. From this quest and from reading the enigmatic pages mostly, we learn that René is a rather terrible person, and his story explains a lot of context for the final world quest in the series, and of Narzissenkreuz. But bear with me for a sec. The next quest in this series is Aqueous Tidemarks. A man named Virgil is looking for the Liliocrucis treasure. The Liliocrucis Forum was an organization that existed many years ago, and their goal was to overthrow Fontaine but failed, supposedly leaving behind an incredible amount of wealth. Traveler and Paimon follow Virgil underwater, where he realizes that the Liliocrucis Forum is actually the ruins of the Institute of Natural Philosophy. The Liliocrucis Forum is just a fictional version of the Narzissenkreuz Ordo, which held secret meetings inside this research institute. Virgil betrays Traveler and Paimon by attempting to let them die to a regenerative ruin greater at the facility. You can enact your revenge on Virgil by working with the Mafia in the following world quest, A Fontainian Message. In Aqueous Tidemarks, you'll discover journal entries from Alain Guillotine and his assistant Carter Sherbius, which I'll also explain in a sec, just remember these names. You'll also unlock a new area within the ruins of the Institute of Natural Philosophy by interacting with the book, the secret meeting place of the Narzissenkreuz Ordo. If you finish the quest in this order so far, you'll encounter Seymour and trigger the short quest, The Final Question. Since the events of Ancient Colors, Seymour had been recovering his lost data. Seymour remembers that his master Mary Ann was an agent of the Merechaussee Phantom, a special detective force sworn to protect Fontaine. Mary Ann was tasked with investigating the Narzissenkreuz Ordo and had pursued Jacob into Elenas, where a battle with the members of the Ordo had taken place. A massive explosion had occurred, and Seymour's data storage unit had sustained extensive damage. He does, however, remember that it was Mary Ann's goal to foil the Ordo's plans and stop Jacob Ingold. Now here's where I'll compile what the deeper story of Fontaine is from quest dialogue so far, interactables in these quests, and artifact lore. Cause yes, even artifacts have lore. Remember when I said that René was a terrible person? He didn't used to be this way apparently. René and his adoptive brother Jacob were friends with Seymour's master Mary Ann and her adoptive brother Alain Guillotin, the founder of the Fontaine Research Institute of Kinetic Engineering Energy and the inventor of the ARC system. All children were orphans in the Narzissenkreuz Institute, not to be confused with the Ordo. The Institute is an orphanage and the Ordo is the evil organization that would later be created. As children, they would all grow up pretty close and play pretend with each other under the care of a gentle Oceanid known as the Director and Vice Director Basil. During his research in Sumru, René had found Conria's world formula. There's no solid confirmation of this, but just by deduction, this world formula seems like Conria's way of predicting the future. No matter how many times he repeats the calculations, the results are the same. All the birthing waters of the land will dry out in a few hundred years, and a few hundred years after, nothing will remain. No new civilizations will be born. The apocalypse, essentially. René's solution to avoiding the catastrophe is to merge all the memories and consciousness of all Fontainians by dissolving them, possibly with water from the primordial sea. His research into water from the primordial sea would be the basis for Marcel's synth business in the 4.0 Archon quests. René, with his brother Jacob, founded the Narzissenkreuz Ordo, a secret society which sought to harness the power of the Abyss to create transcended neo-humans who will survive the foretold destruction of the world. Oof. A rift between René and Alain's friendship formed when René sought to cure Alain's sickly assistant, Carter Sherbius, by imbuing him with the power from the Abyss. The experiment backfired and it seems as though Carter was reduced to what appears to be mud from the chasm. Speaking of which, did the dark mud in the chasm used to be people? Ugh. By reading the notes near this dark mud, well, you can tell René is a terrible, terrible person. Alain seemed to have severely disapproved of René's use of abyssal energy and his radical ideology. He would later join the Narzissenkreuz Phantom with his sister Mary Ann to stop René and Jacob's Narzissenkreuz Ordo. Seymour was created by Alain to be Mary Ann's assistant. Speaking of Mary Ann, now we'll head over to our final main quest in the series, Anne of Narzissenkreuz. Traveler and Paimon meet a tiny Oceanid named Anne who needs help in saving Princess Lyris and the realm from a dragon named Narcissus. This quest gets confusing without the context from the enigmatic pages from earlier, and a chunk of what happens in the story can be explained with the lore from the Nymph's Dream artifact set. This is also why I think it's best to do this quest last in the series. Explaining this specific quest involves a lot of speculation, unfortunately, because the events that happened can have different interpretations until we get a follow-up quest that could confirm this information. I'll do my best with what makes the most sense given the information we've collected in earlier quests. The hydro constructs you encounter in this quest all correspond to people in Mary Ann's life, with Princess Lyris possibly being the name of the Oceanid that took care of the children in the Institute. When René had formed the Narzissenkreuz Ordo, he had dissolved his consciousness with Director Lyris to form an entity known as the Master. In Anne's story, the Master is depicted as the fell dragon Narcissus. Before the Master fell into the primordial sea, it warned Alain that it would be back, reborn anew even hundreds of years later. The Mary Ann you meet at Anapasis seems to just be an Eidolon with the original Mary Ann's memories. The Oceanid Anne we meet is Mary Ann's consciousness reborn. From this, we can deduce that the real Mary Ann may have died in her battle against Jacob inside of Elenas. This quest contains lots of Alice in Wonderland symbolism, which we can probably cover, spoiler alert, when we get the next part of this world quest since it ends on a cliffhanger. The 3 loops in this quest before we reach the real Anapasis might be a retelling of the history of the Narzissenkreuz Institute from Mary Ann's memory. The real Anapasis is also the place that Canotilla may have seen in her vision of a garden and a sweet dog. Once you get to this place, make sure to take lots of pictures because unfortunately, once you leave this place, as for now, you can't get back. This entire quest plays out like a children's story because it's probably reminiscent of how the friend group, as children, would play pretend together, even though what they're reenacting seems to be based off true events. I wonder if it's in the format of a fairy tale as well to prevent the history of the Narzissenkreuz from being tampered with in the Irminsul. If you follow the questline in exactly this order, you can move on to the final secret quest, Unfinished Story. You'll get a wholesome interaction between Seymour and Anne in which she'll lead him to see Anapasis. By doing the quest this way, you get a nice little epilogue for Seymour and Anne's story for the moment, and hopefully we'll see them again soon. Now this portion of the video will cover some theories I have regarding these 4.0 world quests. Remember how Alain invented the arc system and Numa Usia annihilation reactions? Linne's research on Conrian energy, specifically azocite, could be what inspired Alain to discover Numa Usia annihilation reactions, an energy source that powers the clockwork mecha. Azocite was an ancient form of energy used by the Conrians and was drawn from pure elemental energy from the ley lines. According to pages from Some Lost Notes, the writer likens azocite to Kavrina, beings that are associated with light energy. There's some implication that Conria may have attempted to cause a reaction between abyssal energy and light energy in order to create what sounds like a nuclear reaction, similar to the way Numa Usia and annihilation reactions operate, but that's just a thought. After all of this, I wonder if Arlecchino may have been a child in the Narzissenkreuz Institute, the same orphanage René and Alain grew up in. It may have been the inspiration for her starting her own orphanage, the House of the Hearth, after the Institute had disbanded post-Cataclysm. I also wouldn't be surprised if Arlecchino is also involved in the Ordo, considering she may have been influenced by René's radical thinking. It could also be why she fears the Fontainian prophecy about people dissolving into water. Fontaine presents some of the best world quests we've seen so far, and I'm personally excited to see how it all ends. In true Genshin fashion, unfortunately, a lot of great storytelling is hidden in walls of text, but that's okay, because that's what I'm here for. I'll be playing through version 4.1 and all its quests on twitch.tv/Minsleif, so please feel free to stop by and say hi. Contributions to the guild adventure. We wish you smooth travel. Oh! If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. I'm your leify lore Minsleif, and I read the Genshin Impact lore so you don't have to.